Alrighty. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fully Managed Podcast, the podcast where we discuss marketing and business tips to help assist you on your business journey. I'm your host, Shannon, Penji's partnership coordinator, and I'm joined here today with a very special guest, Alessandro Bogliari from the Influencer Marketing Factory. Thank you so much for coming on with me today. I really appreciate it.
Of course, thank you for having me.
Of course, and we both had a funny start to our day, so hey, we're on the same wavelength. So everyone, be very kind to us for this podcast.
Yes, you need that today. We need that.
Alrighty, could you start by telling me a little and telling us a little bit about yourself, kind of how you got to this point in your life, and what kind of inspired you to start this company?
Okay, I'll try to make a long story short. We talent, we speak a lot, right? That's we talk a lot, right? And when we ask us something, it's like 1 minute becomes 1 hour. It's the opposite for us. Like instead of making a long story short, we make a short long, like a short story long, right? That's what we do. Okay, so basically, yeah, I currently live in New York City. I'm from Italy, as you can easily, see, like, here from my accent. But I live in different cities before moving to New York. I actually lived in Copenhagen, Denmark, while I was doing my master's degree. Then I moved to Miami. Then it was actually the opposite, like weather of Copenhagen. I was like, okay, where should I go? Right after the dark and all the rains and everything, Miami, fantastic. And after a couple of years of Miami, it was like dream city all the time. It's been New York City, so that's what I did. And actually, I co-founded the company when I was back in Miami. But my story with influencer marketing starts when I was in Copenhagen. So basically, when I was doing my master thesis, and I was already working, right? So I started working since I was like maybe 14, 15. Well, going to school, I always been in this, entrepreneurial mindset, right? So starting like trying to make money with AdSense when I was very young. And then, I created my first startup when I was 18, 19. There was, this website about what to do in my city, Milano. I didn't make a single dollar there, but I managed like a team of 20 people. So I learned all these like soft skills like leadership, how to manage a team, creative ideas, yada, yada, yada. And so then moving forward in Copenhagen, I had to write this master thesis. I was like, okay, let me combine two things, right? Because I never like really the academia world. And so I was like, if I have to do this thing, because never like, writing 100 pages, right? Thesis is never fun. And so I was like, let me do on something that I'm already working on. And at the time I was working already in the influencer marketing space. This was almost 10 years ago. And influencer marketing at the time was like very different than what it is now, right? And so I got fascinated and I was like, wow, this is like can become big, right? People want to see other people like you talking in front of a camera and they can make money with that, right? So basically I wrote this thesis about it was all about how much to pay influencers on Instagram at the time because it was like the Wild West. So I created the first calculator 9 years ago or so. Now you can find many of them right online, like how much you should be paid, yada yada. But that was my thesis. Was like you can actually add data behind, like these funny videos of people telling you what to buy. So that was like all the thing. And I continued working in influencer marketing. I was like, this is gonna be big. And then when I moved to Miami, I was like, okay, I think it's time for me to create this agency, and then when I started the influencer marketing factory, it started as an experiment. We just put like, like a very minimum, like, budget. We started the company with $1,500. It was basically what we had in terms of like, save money as, as immigrant living in another country, in an expensive country, I would say. And then, the idea was like, hey, let's do these things about influencers. So let's just, get a few clients and then things kind of exploded, right? Especially during COVID. So now, we grew to a company of more than 50 people. It's a global agency. We work with, from Fortune 500 clients to mid enterprise and small medium businesses sometimes. And basically, yeah, it started as an experiment on something that I like to do, that is influencer marketing. Now we have, this agency that is in the top three or top five, depending on which website you look at, in the influencer marketing arena.
That's beautiful, and I love when something starts as kind of just something that you're interested in, because I feel like a lot of people go into spaces because 'cause they're like, "Oh, this is untapped," or
Yes.
"This is something that, people aren't doing already," but it's really nice that was kind of something that inspired you from earlier on and that you got into because it just happened to boom at, like, this perfect time.
Yeah, and I like to add also that, based on the untapped market, it was that I was a big fan of Vine. If you remember that, like it was fantastic. And when it was discontinued, because creators were not making money, is where I started looking for another thing. Like I was like, okay, what is next? Because this Vine thing with short form videos, it was like this is the future, right? you can get in front of like millions of people, right? Just with like 7 seconds, 6 seconds. So I started looking around and I found out about Musically. I remember that I downloaded Musically. I was like, okay, this is not the place for me. It's a bunch of very young people, right? Lip syncing and dancing. I was like, that's not for me. And I just installed it. But then I go back on YouTube and I start looking at these compilations of during the transition from Musically to TikTok. And so I was like, okay, this is it. And I bet on it, 100% on it, that we became one of the first agencies in the world back in the day start offering that. And we got clients like Sony Music, Universal Music, we're a music group. They wanted to launch songs and artists on TikTok. And so we kind of were like, okay, many other companies already offer Instagram and YouTube. Why don't become that TikTok agency there? Then we, of course, we start offering more things, but that's, I would say, the that market was not just influencer marketing, it was short form videos specifically on TikTok.
That's awesome. Is do you also work in long form media or longer form media, I should say? Because I know YouTube is still technically short-ish.
Yes. No, we do now. We primarily do TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. I would say that these days it's a good mix. Clients come to us because they want to experiment, right? Many times you don't really know who's going to be the right medium and the right format for you up until you don't test it, right? And so what we say all the time is that if you want to do a multi-platform type of approach, do it. Because many times brands they think that they know their audience, they think what is going to work up until you don't test it, right? You do A/B testing on different type of formats, you do ABC testing on different type of platforms and social media channels, you don't really know. And so we all the time, if they have the budget, we all the time advise to say, test a bit the waters and see what works and what doesn't for you.
So if, say, a company comes to you with, like, an objectively bad idea for a campaign,
Mhm.
what do you kinda do in that situation?
So we educate them, right? Because at the end of the day, you want the client happy and you want
Mhm.
retention, right? In an agency. And it would be very difficult to having the client happy and retain them if they come with an idea that is not going to work. And we are the experts, right? We're not here just to say, okay, we're going to just, it would be easier to just close the campaign, get the money, right? And then run it and don't care about it. But again, we all know that the cost of acquiring a new client is just higher compared to, having like the possibility to continue working for months, if not for years with the same client, right? And
Mhm.
so because of that, we're like, politely we tell them this might not be the best idea for all these reasons, because of the historical data that we have, because we do have people that spend time every day looking at trends on TikTok. They look at what is happening on YouTube Shorts. They see what is happening on Instagram Reels and so on. Not only short form but also long form. And based on that, we tell them we try to bring them to what would work. At the end of the day, if still the client is still convinced, no, we want to do that, we put on paper and be like, hey, we do think that it might not be the best, way to go. But if this is your final decision, it's your money, it's your last call on these. And so we do it. And it happened in the past. They were like, oh, this didn't work out. They were like, let's go back in the conversation. We told you about that. And again, it's like similar to whenever you want advice from your attorney or from your accountant, right? Sometimes it's like, why don't we do that? And then something happens bad, maybe, and you're like, oh, but why did it happen? And we're like, oh, you didn't listen to our
Our
expertise.
advice, yeah.
What?
Mhm.
Yeah, we try to educate a lot. I think that the educational side and part from an agency is quite crucial for our clients.
Yeah, okay, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's really nice to be able to you wanna cater to the client because it's like, sometimes, even though you have an expert opinion and they're coming to you for a service, sometimes they know their audience a little better, but sometimes they're just kind of off base because they're
Yeah,
focused on the wrong things.
yeah, like they do because it's their product. It
Mhm,
doesn't necessarily mean that they know what they should do. Like
mhm,
they might think like, okay, this is I think an interesting like scenario where there might be a client that already say, oh, we want to go with this type of format because it what works for us. And we're like, okay, but have you tested other type of formats? Oh, no, 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 because this is the way to go for us. And then up until you do like, especially when you do paid media, right? So we do a lot of boosting, right, of campaigns. If we take TikTok specifically, you can do spark ads, for instance. And what we advise all the time is that take two total different formats in terms of video, touch and feel, tone of voice, like 30 seconds versus 1 minute, whatever, and you test them. You will not know up until you test what actually people want to see. And another could be do a very polished video in a studio, whatever, and do another that is very raw. It's super, natural. And you'll see that many times, maybe what like you spend 10 seconds to do that, or at least it's look like that you spend only 10 seconds, might perform way better than the one where you spend thousands of dollars in a studio with professional actors, because that it doesn't really usually work right on social media. So what I say all the time is that instead of just your gut feeling, look at data, because at the end of the day, this is marketing, right? And you have to look at data to say it works, this is gonna work for the future, this doesn't work, and so on, right?
Yeah, of course. So, yeah, I think that data is also something that's obviously valuable to be able to show a client, hey, this isn't working or this is working. And I think that sometimes, especially when it's earlier on in a company, they're looking at, oh, we're just getting views from
Mm.
this. So it's like they think that's working because they're getting views, but they don't realize the sheer amount that could be so much better if they tried something else. Because sometimes they just view this narrow scope of, like, this is good enough to get people to, buy this product or buy this service. Um, so it's gonna be able to show them the data that maybe they don't have, or maybe they don't know that they can have.
Yeah, I'm also telling them like each medium is different from the other. You cannot expect to do a video that was working on Instagram and put it on YouTube Shorts. It doesn't translate necessarily, right? Because you have different type of audience every time. I know there is like common sense, like for who works in influencer marketing, but I realize that many times brands thinks like, "Well, I made this video, let me just post it everywhere." You
Mhm.
can do that, yes, but if you really want to succeed, you have to understand that a type of humor that is happening on TikTok, right? Like these days, I'm seeing a lot of these videos. There is like, oh, the comments are funny. Say like, I feel I have no one that I can show this to, right? Because there are so many references in a video, right? Maybe a video it's a remix of a reference to a movie from the 80s. Like there's so much pop culture and so much like niche culture happening these
Mhm.
days, right? Think about Reddit, right? There are so many subreddits of things that are very niche that you wouldn't even expect, and all this just to say, don't think that your audience is gonna be one. It's these days it's very fractioned, right? You
Mhm.
can find the same person with different accounts on each social media. On each social media, they might follow different things. They might react differently to each type of content. So that is something to take in consideration even before doing your content calendar or whatever it is.
Yeah, I completely understand that, and I think that there's also I definitely understand where you're saying that they're kind of fractured, especially by age group, I think, because,
Yeah.
Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever it may be, I think there's generational differences for each one,
Yeah.
obviously, because, Facebook is, I feel like, a older group is on Facebook because
Mhm.
Instagram came out later and a lot of
Yes.
people just didn't get with that. And then TikTok is even later where it's like short form content. My parents won't even watch a TikTok with me. They don't want to see a video that's short. Their attention span doesn't want that. And I think that that makes a lot of sense. And it's even sometimes it's just not for certain people. Like I don't prefer to watch TikToks because I felt like it rotted my brain for a little bit. I was spending too much time on it, so I deleted it, and there's a lot of people that don't use it for specific reasons and different things like that, and that's an untapped audience, whereas I love YouTube, but I don't wanna watch long form content is, I guess,
Mhm.
because I don't know what considers something as long technically, but TikTok has you can watch up to 10 minutes on TikTok now instead of like 1 minute, 2
Yeah.
minute, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And that's complex because I don't want to watch a 10-minute video on TikTok because most of them are not that long. But I will watch a 10-minute video on YouTube because I know what I'm signing up for.
Yes, absolutely. It's a good point. I also think that is about user behaviors depending on the country, continent, even sometimes that you are in, right? Like if you think about let's say Korean drama, right? There are like or like also like a lot of there is a lot of apps in China that is already dedicated to like these short dramas, right? There are so many apps that basically only just offer that. And like also like Douyin, right? The real version, right? The Chinese TikTok, right? They started with longer videos way like years ago, because again like especially in China and in other places, and like especially in Asia, they're used to going like be more like they got used to have mobile even before having laptops sometimes, right? There is all these like different like historical things that happen, right, in certain areas where it was easier to have a mobile phone and then a connection with the internet with a typical computer.
Mm.
Because of that, in terms of behaviors, in terms of like how you grow up, you're used to have everything on you on a small screen, and it could be short and long. While for us, Western countries, for us in Europe, people here in the US, usually you were used to watch longer videos on TV, right? And that's why these days a lot of people use connected TV, right? With YouTube, like a bunch of people are watching more and more YouTube these days than Netflix on TV. So again, like when you go back to that, that's why we're used to. The idea for us is short form videos on mobile, and then everything that is like longer, even laptop or TV. While in China, right, many times is like I can watch both of them and both on mobile, right? So that's why I think that sometimes it's not a technical question; it's about a behavioral question. It's about a historical and cultural question, right? And it doesn't translate. It took 20, 30, 40 years for certain countries to change, right? And
Mm.
so it's not going to happen overnight in the US at least.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really interesting point because I don't always consider the cultural differences between content consumption. I think that um there's probably vast differences that I just wouldn't even know. I've never been out of the country, which is insane. I don't even own a passport. I would love to be out of the country sometime. Just has
But
happened yet. I'm on the younger side, so it's just like
that's the thing. Like you learn a lot about like each person is different. And last time that I was in Indonesia in Bali, I had the chance to talk with people before TikTok was banned there, and I talked with people about live stream shopping. It's something that I really look, like forward to coming more here now. TikTok is investing in that. Instagram did like some ups and downs with that. YouTube is still not there yet totally. Twitter now X try to do that. Um, Again, when I talk with them, right, I really realized that a lot of people in Indonesia, again, before the ban, they were spending hours in watching live stream shopping, right? While in the US, it was people got used to QVC from like 20 years ago, so they're like, okay, this is nothing new. It's totally different still. It's still very totally different, but it's not that novelty, right? Compared to so, I think that these days, social commerce is working very well in the US. If you see just TikTok Shop, like
yeah,
people with affiliate are killing it.
amen.
But we're still missing live stream shopping because there are not enough incentives. When you go and you watch live stream shopping in China, let's say, there is a lot of things happening, right? There is a lot of gamification, there is incentives, right? Or if you stay on, there might be a drop collection, right? Or if you stay on, only the first 10 people are going to get this discount. While in the US, as of now, it's more about like, oh, I'm going to show you the product, but there is not an incentive for me to stay and spend my time with you, with a live stream host. So again, there is a bunch of things to say there, but just the importance of talking with other cultures and other countries make you realize that it's like there is so much more possibilities. And again, usually, as I said before, it's not about technical skills or technical problems and issues or gaps. It's more about the behavior and the culture of the people behind the in front of the screen.
Yeah, and that's an I think that's an incredible point because I think that a lot of people aren't considering those factors when looking at things because I think that
Mhm.
a lot of times it's just a narrow focus on the US if that's where the company started. And of course, like if you don't consider all those factors, then there's so many untapped audiences that you don't cater to.
Mhm.
And of course, like if the majority of your audience is in one country, then of course focus on that country. I'm sure if that's what works best for you. But if if you're kind of focused on more of a monetary value and you want to reach more people, then it is important to factor in those things. So yeah, no, that's an incredible point and something that I haven't really considered as much because I guess I'm not as culturally well rounded. The only thing I learn is from television
Mhm.
mostly and the news, which is not great.
Yeah, no.
Not great. Not great. The news has propaganda, television shows are dramatized. Great time. So yeah, I try to stay as culturally uh informed as I can in the country, but unfortunately without traveling, I feel like I can't learn as much as I
Mhm.
could while doing that. So that's a bucket list item. Okay, we're gonna switch topics
Yeah.
because I feel like we were talking about that for a lot, but it was really informative, so thank you. Um, could you kind of talk about do you have a type of influencer that you look for when um not only just for a specific campaign, because obviously
Mhm.
I'm sure that they're different per campaign, but
Yes.
when kind of recruiting sort of sorts, do you have a specific type of person that you look for? Like it's a criteria?
Yeah, so it depends when so we do. two things, right, in the company. I mean, more than a couple, but we do both the campaign management, right, where we source influencers that we do not represent, but we also have a talent agency that so we exclusively represent certain people. And so to answer both of them, like, the first one about the campaign management, it's about a couple of things. It's quantitative and qualitative data, right? So all the quantitative is basically from numbers, metrics, historical data in terms of if we are able to get that, like, how many clicks did you get, in the past campaigns? Are you able to tell us how much did you sold thanks to your unique link or whatever, right? So there is all that quantitative data. Then there is also qualitative, right? So what is the touch and feel of that type of videos? What type of humor do they use? It is informative, right? Have they got in any scandals in the past? Are they using, like, bad words in their videos, right? It is actually, brand safe to use, right? So again, there is a lot of things that going on. There is, again, quantitative and qualitative, and that is usually for campaign management. But when it comes to talent agencies, so representing people, we're always quality over quantity. We don't want to be that agency that has, like, 500 people that you represent, and then only 50 of them, 10% they work, right? And all the others really don't get anything. They don't get enough attention. And so what we're like is that not only we look at quantitative and qualitative data, brand safe and everything, we're looking for professional people, right? Um, the thing is that become an influencer, it's like the barriers are it's very low, right? Because everyone can be a content creator. Everyone can potentially be. I mean, like, becoming content creator is even easier, right? Because you just need to create content. That's what is like. It's now we're creating content, and in this moment, both of us, right? Like, we're creating content, so that is quite easy to do. Then it's difficult to make quality ones, right? That is another level. And then the other level is like, okay, now we are creating content. How do you influence people, right? And after all these things, plus quantitative, qualitative analysis, it's about, is this person a professional? Because again, it's that easy, like, to maybe these days, right, to get, uh, 10 million views on one TikTok video. Doesn't mean that you're actually an influencer. Doesn't mean that you're going to be a professional. Um, and so we want to be sure that whenever we work with people, we know that these people are going to be like, okay, I'm taking this seriously because I'm taking money, right? And therefore, I'm going to check all the different things in the scope of work of the agreement. I'm going to be sure that this is going to be the deadline. I'm going to respect that. If the client is asking me for this edit, it is included in the agreement. I'm going to, of course, do that by the time that they ask me. And the more you go, the more you realize that unfortunately, a lot of people are not that professional. They might be fantastic content creators. They might be great influencers. It doesn't mean that you can rely on them. And so whenever we want to find exclusive people to represent, we want to be sure that they are professionals. They take that seriously. Is there, like, that's how they make the money. That's how they bring money on the table. And we want to be sure that is the right fit. Because again, it's just that easy to think that someone is gonna be like, oh, this person go viral online. It's not enough anymore.
Is there ever a point where you kind of pair an influencer with a campaign or influencers with a campaign and it's not the right fit?
Of course, it happens. Like, we manage hundreds of campaign that then translate to thousands of people that we hire every year, right, on these campaigns. And because of the law of big numbers, like, of course, it could be a miscommunication with the client, right? Maybe the client sometimes thought, right, that that type of influence is gonna work well for that campaign, and then we find out that it was not the case. Sometimes going back to the being professionals. Sometimes it could be that the person start replying to you, and then when they have to create the content, they don't provide the content. It happens, unfortunately. There are people that they are not professional again, and they take their either sweet time to get back to you, or they don't get back to you. Or maybe sometimes, even if the agreement it says that you have to do maybe a couple of edits, it happened maybe that someone was like, "No, I will not do that, and I will still want to be paid," and then the client is pissed. Um, the pro and con of influencer marketing is that pro, again, it works, right? Is like it brings great ROI. You can create fantastic content, right? And in the pro also, it is that it's a people business, right? Meaning that you actually create and you can co-create. At the same time, part of the con, it is that it's a people business. So it's a pro and con at the same time, because many times, again, you don't really know, like, it's not like AI, you click a button, right? You had to communicate with the person, right? And many times, with some people, you don't even communicate by email. with some of them, it's by iMessage, by DM, by
Mhm.
WhatsApp, right? It's very difficult sometimes to manage these type of things. So again, um, eh, so it could happen absolutely. Like, you think that the person is gonna be this, great person and professional and everything, and then you find out that it's not. And the more you work on campaigns, of course, but I would say that is it's minimal compared to, it's there are other maybe challenges, but this one, up until you're like on the same page from day one, yeah, it could happen as in any other industry, right? So I would say that is there, but I wouldn't get too mad about it. It's part of the business.
Yeah, you move people around if
Yeah,
that's the case. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I didn't even process the amount of challenges that would be coming with communication on that end because it's not really a uniform kind of,
absolutely not. No, it's
yeah,
not like, again,
less
you
troublesome.
find, yeah, you find someone is like, you could do. I mean, we have everyone signing an agreement, right? Of course, all the time, because but sometimes you might like they don't even have their email address right on their bio, or even if you use platforms, so they might remove that because they don't want to be contacted. So you have to contact them by DM, right? And some people give you the email and you continue by email. Others they continue by DM. So again, it's time consuming, and that's why many times you cannot do, in my opinion, influencer marketing just on a platform. People think like, oh, I have a platform, I can go there, I select these people. No, 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 no. That is a great starting point. But then all the communication, negotiation of pricing, negotiation of deliverables, all that is part of the communication. And it's very difficult to do it in black or white with a platform. Like, again, so you can use that, but if you want really to do that in a specific way and be sure that the ROI is going to be there and everything, you need to have the component of the human being with expertise behind that.
Mhm. Yeah, you need to be able to navigate those communication issues, but also be, personable with
Exactly.
and, like, understanding of those,
Hard skill, skills together. That's the thing. Yes.
no, that's, yeah, that's something that I wouldn't have even thought of, because there's a lot of marketing agencies have a very streamlined process, but that's, like, the difficulty with working with people only on, like, whole companies. That's very difficult. Um, do you have a favorite campaign that you've ever worked on? Maybe you're not allowed to, single anyone out, so you don't have to describe exactly it, but maybe just,
Uh, I mean, without like mentioning necessarily, I like those campaigns that we run when there is also an in-person component. I like that part. So could be, either when we work with automotive, right? Automotive, you need to have something in person
Mhm.
where you either test drive the car or you show the interiors and everything, right? That makes a huge difference. You cannot make a video of a car in your room, right? You can do that with a beauty product, right? But you cannot do that with that.
Mm,
Or I like when there is like, clients that maybe are experiential, like, events, traveling. You can
mhm,
create fantastic content because you send the people maybe on a plane and then they go to a place. There is so much storytelling behind that. So I like all those campaigns where there is storytelling, in-person meetings. So I'm not saying that all the others that is only like, in your room or whatever is not effective, but I think that people want to see more and more, right?
yeah.
Connections, human talking with other humans. And again, the storytelling process is crucial. And so I think that when I have like many more factors, such as, again, traveling to a place, going to an event, right? There are going to be also things that you might not expect, right, happening. And I think that that gives the color, right, inside of a story, because something might happen during the process of recording the video that you were not expecting. And that is going to be that little twist in the video that is going to go making millions of views, right? So
Mhm,
I like that component because you can use all the unexpected things to actually give value to your content, and more than everything is going to be scripted, then yeah, it could be great, but you will see that it's missing that the juicy, right, things
mhm.
happening there.
Yeah, the more interesting, part that, you might not be able to plan for, but is
Yeah,
definitely,
exactly.
a clicker. Um, do you get to go to these places, or is it only the influencer that gets to go and you
I wish, like, sometimes I'm like, maybe I'm on the right, on the wrong side, right? When I did my first, uploaded my first YouTube videos, like in 2009 or something, when you didn't want to tell people, right, that you were uploading videos on YouTube. That was the error, right? Like it was such a hobby and weird things. And people were looking at bad, like almost weird at you, right?
I
Like,
very much remember that I was a
you
big
know,
YouTube watcher when I was younger, and I remember the shame around being a content creator because it wasn't, like, a job yet.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Mhm.
So when I did that, and then I stopped making those videos, but sometimes I feel like, what if, right? And maybe I continue that, and now I would be maybe an influencer and traveling the world and being paid for all these type of things. But jokes apart, usually unless it's something where it's a bit more corporate type of things, and we do also do that type of events sometimes. So maybe we organize events also where influencers arrive, right? And maybe there is the CEO of the company that is launching a new product, right? In that case, yes, maybe I would go because it's also networking. It's a nice way to talk with the client. But if we're talking about, go to Bora Bora with a group, we're like, no, that's not gonna be the case. Unfortunately, I would love to be part of it, but difficult to justify as a cost, right? That I'm gonna go together with a group of people, but I would love.
That stinks, but, it's nice, you still know you're getting success from the campaign, even if
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
not something that you get to go to. It's still really fun. Oh, well, unfortunately, we don't have time for our game today because we're all out of time.
I
I'm
chance.
sick. I love talking. No, that's the best part of the podcast. And I think that I learned a lot, which is really lovely because we don't I don't think I've talked to an influencer marketing agency before. So this is really a nice untapped
Nice.
little area to talk about. And it's nice. I love to favorite part is learning on the podcast. I hope I never stop saying it because I get to learn from everyone. So it's incredible. So I appreciate the talking. If you talked less, maybe I wouldn't have learned as much.
I'm still learning, trying to make things a bit faster, but it's difficult. I told you that the Italian DNA is there. So
Yeah, my mom thought we were Italian our entire lives, and then I took one of those 23andMe tests and found out that wasn't true. And it was really funny because she made it like a personality trait, and it was kind of a stereotype, and it was never a
story, and I should. You like the EMI, it's existential crisis happening.
yeah, I get like my hand gesturing from her, and like we're not. It's very very funny, but we're from New Jersey, and a lot of
Mm,
people say that's one and the
course.
same, which is
Yes.
not. Uh, but I grew up around a bunch of Italians, so it's always very refreshing. So thank you. But thank you again so much for coming on with me today. I really appreciate it. This was absolutely lovely. I learned a lot, and that's always my favorite thing. And thank you everyone for watching and or listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to hear more awesome stories like this. Thank you so much.